Well, I appreciate you all being the very first partner to come in and do it. But y'all have done a lot of firsts for Harbinger. So it's fitting that you guys are the very first ones to jump on the podcast with us. So, Harbinger's mission is to be a catalyst for growth for the businesses that we serve, because we believe that thriving businesses foster thriving individuals. And like we're talking about at lunch, there's a lot of podcasts that are, leadership podcasts and business. There's a lot of resources out there, but what I think is unique about our partners is just their stories, and being able to hear their stories is something that I'm really excited about. We talked a little about y'all story at lunch, and I'd love to save more of that for right here. But yeah, in general, I'd just love to know more about, like, how did ADM start from the very beginning? Who started ADM? Who is ADM? What does ADM mean?
Yeah. Go back
so
to
you want me to
the
start
very
from the beginning?
beginning.
Jump in the beginning.
How much time do you got? Because
We got
we
plenty
can
of
go for
time.
a while.
We got plenty of time.
Go back to the very
So you
beginning.
start at the beginning. Who started it? How did it start?
Yeah, who started ADM?
So obviously this is my sister Taylor. You guys know. Our family is a garbage family. That's what we know. My dad started
Trashy.
ADM Sanitation, residential, subscription-based garbage in '95. So I would have been 8, 9 years old then. I grew up in it. He eventually had front load, Rolloff, anything garbage related. So that's all I did as a kid. And they were in business for about 17 years. And they sold their business in 2012. At that time, I was, I guess, technically like the general manager of their company. Went on to work for one of the big corporates. Did not enjoy my time there. Made it about 90 days, and then that's when ADM Rolloff technically officially formed. There was some old equipment they still had from that didn't go to the big corporate with the sale. I was the oldest
Rolloff
of the five.
Rolloff
Rolloff
equipment
Yeah,
only.
specifically?
so with ADM Sanitation, they had dipped their toes into,
Yeah, they had been
how
in
many,
front load.
30 roll-offs? that what you
Yeah,
said?
like 30 dumpsters were out, but the company that purchased them wasn't interested in it, so it was kind of just sitting there.
It went clean.
And
there
There's
was
no non-compete for
yeah,
the
I was
roll-off
just say
side.
there
No,
would have.
I still think they screwed
Probably.
up to this day. They should have put that in the non-compete because
Yeah.
Did
Little did they know.
and I don't know who bought ADM Sanitation. Did they do roll off at all or no? Like
they
they
did.
had no interest.
Well,
in
they
it.
were in like 7 or 8
Can't
states. They just didn't have it on the south side of Atlanta, so they didn't include that in the non-compete. And I to that's where they screwed up. It
Lost
worked out good for us.
opportunity
But
for them.
yeah.
Well, what was it like growing up in the family business? So, like, at what age did y'all even get involved in the
Okay.
business?
So
I said that he started when I was like 8. I would say 8. So this is a good one.
yeah.
So when they built the house that we lived in McDonough, the basement was unfinished. There was a time that all the trash cans were stored in the basement.
Wow.
Like the
Oh,
trash
we should have
cans
brought
that,
some pictures.
that got delivered to new customers. They didn't have the money or real estate. They weren't renting anywhere yet.
Yeah.
So new trash cans, the basement was filled, and we'd play hide and seek, and you'd crawl through the. They were
like a
brand new.
maze.
They were brand new plastic. It's not like they stunk or anything. So we would play down there, and then I think as the family grew, there's 5 of us. So then the basement eventually got finished. That's where the company's offices were. And then at that time, the trash cans were stored out in the back corner of the backyard. We lived in a nice neighborhood. It wasn't nasty or anything.
Back then, it was probably less. It was not a lot of houses.
Yeah.
Too many people.
So then they were stored out there, but I do remember that would have been like one of my first jobs. I'm quite a bit. How much older than you? 6 years older.
Something like that.
So I was the oldest, so naturally I was the one doing the physical work first.
I remember we talked about this recently. I remember because they billed quarterly, so it prints out
Oh,
these
yeah.
bills. And sitting in the basement where my grandma lived with us, she lived so where the offices were, her
She
living
had the other
quarters
half of
were
the basement.
the other half of the basement, and we would sit and do stamps. And I remember as a
On
kid
all the
being
bills
like
to send out.
so concerned that my stamp wasn't on the bill.
So my mom would like print they were basically like postcards, and then pass them down to the kids to put the stamps on to
It's
send
like
out.
technology back then wasn't like it is, so
Yeah, there
everybody
was
was waiting on their
there was no
postcard bill.
No,
No.
well, everybody would be just auto draft now. I mean, you don't send a check to your garbage company anymore.
And then same thing, like checks would start coming in. Mom would tote us all in the car, and she'd sit in the parking lot we'd go to the post office first because they had a PO box, get everything. Then she'd go directly to the bank and sit and thumb through and pull out checks, and then go deposit them. We're waiting on our sucker you know, from the
bank
bank.
bags, no official accounting.
No. And the bank we used was so small, it was out of a trailer at the time. It's small. That was back when.
So that was probably the first like girls' job. I was outside putting trash cans together. And then on the flip side, like when you have to go pick up trash cans, a customer cancels or whatever, one of the other first jobs was just cleaning the trash can before it goes to a new one. So pressure wash it, spray it with whatever, bleach or whatever.
And they had multiple shops after it outgrew.
Yeah,
Dang, how many?
So what does ADM mean? Because I've heard a couple variations of the story. I'd like to hear all of them again.
my dad likes to change his story it depends on who he's talking to, but the real meaning, so he was in the Marine Corps, and then that's how he made it to Atlanta. He got a job with Delta as a mechanic. And then he says in the early 90s, they were doing like a round of layoffs, and he was worried about being
He
jobless.
still worked for Delta when
My
he
mom
started
was
ADM.
my mom was pregnant with
Amber or Jake.
one of the young
born in
ones.
91.
Yeah, one of the young ones, and they were worried about not having a job. And so he said he counted the number of houses in the neighborhood and said, if I charged each one of them, whatever it was, $10 a month, I'd make $600 a month. And that was
Started
like,
really small.
I guess the light bulb moment. I'm going to start a garbage company and still work at Delta. Well, pre-internet and SEO and all the stuff you guys do, it was just the Yellow Pages. So he wanted to be in the front of the Yellow Pages, and there was another local garbage company that was CLM Sanitation, and so he wanted to be above them. He said he learned later that it didn't really matter. He could have just paid for ads in Yellow Pages and been above them. So he was thinking
The original SEO right there.
yeah.
We want to be
It
the
was
first.
and then, so then there was a few different variations. A Delta mechanic. People joked that it was a dumb mother. Then years
All
later,
David's
like
money.
employees turned it into all David's money. But it was
Yeah.
really just
A dumb man.
a dumb
was one
man.
of 'em.
But it was really just to be in the front of the Yellow Pages above CLM. So, aging Delta mechanic, and that's what it was.
That's hysterical because he
Yeah.
told me it was Atlanta Dumpster Man. That was the story he told
Well,
me.
There's
you wanna-
there's been
And asked.
there's been a
Listen,
lot.
And it can't
Delta
even-
mechanic was what he
Listen,
told
Yeah.
me.
it couldn't
see,
even
different
be
story, different
a
day.
dumpster man because back then there was
There
no
wasn't dumpsters,
dumpsters. There
technically,
was no
95.
dumpsters. So that's a story he's made up. But we have people, it's funny, that come to the transfer station window. This happens all the time. And, we're in earshot, so we can hear, like, people at the window, and they're like, oh, I know the guy that started this. And we're like, oh, yeah? And he's like, yeah, I have the trash cans, which we don't even get into that with them. We're like, those trash cans aren't even ours, whatever. And they're like, I know what ADM means, and I'm always interested to see what they're going to say because most of them are wrong. I'm like,
most are
nobody
wrong.
knows. But, oh, well.
Do y'all think that being that engrossed in the business from such a young age really directed your path to being like the entrepreneurs that you?
Oh, 100%.
Because it always feels to me like when I talk to the small businesses we work with, these people aren't working. This is their life. It's people say it's your life's work, but it's actually your life because you don't separate life from work.
And it's weird because I guarantee if you would have asked me when I was 8 to 16 years old, I probably would have said, I'm leaving. I'm never doing anything related to this ever again. And now it's like eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like garbage is on my mind all the time. And
Especially for the boys. So Sean and Jake, obviously. I think it was for sure for them. And then like me, as I have 2 sisters, I'm the only one. My other sister is a teacher. My other sister stays at home. She's military traveling. But I always looked at my mom, which just goes to show that as like a kid, you don't really see what's actually going on. I just thought my mom stayed at home with us. Like that's what she did. Meanwhile, she's actually like operating a whole business. So I grew up with the mentality that like I just wanted to like have some kids and stay at home. Like that was my plan. And then obviously as I got older, I'm like,
she was actually
more
working
to
80
do.
hours a
Yeah,
week
she
in
was
the
actually
basement.
now it makes sense why she would go downstairs to the office
and do
after
billing
everybody
at
goes to
11
bed.
o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Sounds like, work ethic is a big part of what y'all probably learned from your parents.
Have you met my dad?
I have.
There was no other option. There was no other option. And that's from not even garbage. That's just, it might be get up and cut the grass. I don't care that it's 7 a.m. on Saturday.
I'm curious, did he have a plan, or did you have a discernible plan that he wanted y'all to somehow be involved
No,
in the business?
the exact
at all?
opposite.
Really? Okay.
Exact opposite. So their plan all along was they were going to build it and they were going to sell it, and that was their retirement when my youngest sister graduated high school.
When did that?
They
that
got
happened in
pretty. It
12.
was pretty close. It was her senior year, or no, junior
She
year.
graduated I graduated 10. Jake graduated 12.
Yeah.
And then Amber graduated 14. So,
But the years,
Amber cried
the
like a
3 or
baby
4
when she found out they
years,
sold.
yeah, the 3 or 4 years leading up to the sale, there was a big corporate in the area that was rolling up everybody. So they were coming and knocking every month trying to buy them, and they just always told them no. And then finally, when they did sit down and talk to them, it was just the timing was right. But no, their plan was for us to go to college and go get jobs doing something else and
Get out of the trash business.
Get out of the trash business.
You want better for your kids.
Yeah.
Little did they know that actually was the better.
Well, and I don't think at that time you realized that that's even like an option. You think they knew that that was their retirement goal. And then you know that there's non-competes and everything else that's involved in that. So you don't even know that that's an option for them to continue on. Looking back, it's a good thing that they didn't have any non-competes in there.
But they, now that I have 5 kids, I mean, I get it. You want better because they were, I mean, everybody says that it's an entrepreneur. Oh, I work a lot. No, I mean, 100-hour weeks were normal. Like, that's not uncommon. So I get, like, no, go to college and go get a real job. Like, don't do this. I get that. But no, like I said, I had a little taste of the corporate world with them, and I wouldn't go back for nothing. I mean, I love it.
So take me back to that first moment where it's like that was an opportunity that y'all saw. Like when did that exactly happen to step in and start doing the roll-off dumpsters?
The day it happened was the day we got home from the hospital with my oldest son. He's 12. And my parents had been talking to the big corporate that bought them. And I guess nothing had been finalized. So it was literally the day we got home from the hospital, they came and said, we're selling the business. I forget at the time exactly.
And you worked for them at that time.
And I worked for them. I was, I guess, the general manager.
And mind you, this is all hush because, you know, when you're going through it like a sale like that, you can't. Did you even know?
No, I didn't know until the day. I mean,
They took it serious.
yeah.
Wow.
Like, we
legit.
did not know. I'm not kidding. I said my sister cried. They told us after it happened, like the day after, and my sister cried and was like, "What are y'all gonna do? Like, how are we gonna have to move?" Mom and Dad were like, "No,
This is a good thing.
this is a good thing."
Part of the plan.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was the general manager. I would have been, Bradford was born, I would have been 26. Yeah, 26, 25, whatever. My wife worked, but I mean, no, there was no like taking time off. I had to do something immediately. And I went, like I said, I went there for 90 days. I hated it.
The company that bought them.
The company that bought them.
That was kind of worked in.
And and then they've been sold since, so they don't even technically exist anymore. It's a huge corporate now. But yeah, I knew the business. I knew numbers. I like business. I don't mind working with my hands outside, working on trucks, anything. That's all I had done. So there was some old equipment left over that didn't go with the sale, and then we got a couple of trucks from actually a local government auction, DeKalb County auction.
Before the sale?
Basically right after, so that we would have equipment to start. And then January 1 hit, and that was, or December, whatever it was, 29th was my last day at the corporate. We started, basically had no customers, no anything. I had a CDL, so I started driving a truck. My brother was still in high school, but he would answer the phones. He never wanted to go to college, so we never expected it to turn into what it is today. But at 18, he was like, "Oh, I'll make some money. You know, I'll be in this garbage business with my brother."
At what point during that 90-day period with corporate did you start having those conversations with everyone involved?
Yeah,
So-
right off the rip.
Really?
I probably, they don't exist anymore, so they can't sue me now. But what I did is, I was probably less than a month into it, and I knew I hated it. And there was a large company. They had, I think it was about 20 CSRs that worked up front. And I was like, the corporate didn't offer dumpsters at the time. So I was like, I guarantee they get a lot of phone calls for dumpsters. So I asked for a meeting with all the girls in the office. Said, "Hey, between you and me, send those phone calls to this phone number, my brother. Everyone he converts, I'll give you a $20 bill." Wow. So they started doing that, and that's where we first started getting some business, because we didn't have any customers. And they were a large company. I forget exactly how many residential companies or customers at the time. It was over 100,000 residential customers. So they were always getting phone calls, people just assuming that the garbage company offers dumpsters. And so that
Who
was
drove the first truck?
Me.
Okay, nice.
And when we started getting business in that 90 days, we had an old employee that we would just pay him basically on the side. He would go run the route at night if we needed to, or I would run it at night after I get out of the office. However we had to do for the 90 days. And then if my dad needed to fill in, because then once it was known this is what we were going to do, Jake was almost 18, so he was old enough to get a CDL. So my dad would drive with Jake riding with him till he could train up to get a CDL, and then he graduated a couple months later. Phones started ringing more and more. Had to get a second truck on the road, so then it was both of us driving. And then we asked our mom to start answering the phone
My mom
again.
was answering phone.
That didn't last very long. She was full on retirement mode, had no interest in answering the phones for us.
They were like, she was writing things on scrap
Yeah.
paper in her car.
And we talked earlier, I said, I hope you documented everything along the way. Like, and I wish I would have, because I don't remember like when we rented the first office space and hired the first person to answer the phone and stuff. But those first couple of years were all a blur anyway.
And most of I mean, a lot of the first people with ADM Rolloff were previous ADM sanitation people. So
Yeah.
like the office, I'm assuming.
Our first office one had been an
Judy?
office.
A previous ADM sanitation
Yeah, our
employee.
first two actually.
Driver.
Our first
long-standing driver, still our
and he's still with us
driver,
today.
Was a driver with ADM sanitation.
Yeah. The big corporate, when they bought, we had, whatever, my parents had like 25 employees. They said everybody's going to have a job. They fired everybody.
Yeah.
So some of those drivers I was easy to get.
Yep.
And so, yeah, the first one came from the previous company. But yeah, the first couple of years were a blur. And
What was the number one challenge early on in that business? 'Cause I imagine to some degree there was a lot of risk stepping out from a corporate job. That was a kind of a sure thing to.
yeah, obvious financial. I mean, if we wouldn't have had access to the old equipment that we essentially inherited, it would have never worked. Because well, I shouldn't say never. We would have had to go borrow money, and we didn't. We were extremely against borrowing money, and we didn't borrow money for 7 or 8 years. I mean, we bootstrapped everything, paid cash for everything.
That's awesome.
We were after the first couple of years, we started growing relatively fast, so we needed more dumpsters. We scoured Craigslist. We bought any piece of junk we could get, and then since me and Jake have been in it for forever, we know how to weld, paint, work on stuff. So we would weld old dumpsters, paint them, refurb them, slap ADM stickers on them, and that's what we did for years. And we probably went from we probably added a couple hundred dumpsters just doing that, buying old used stuff.
Fixing it up. For reference, y'all said you started with 30. How many dumpsters do you have right now?
A little over 600.
Yeah.
How many trucks?
Close to 700 trucks.
Roll-off trucks that go out every day, like 18.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And some portable toilet trucks, mechanic trucks, some
Yes, and those
flatbeds,
things
other
added
stuff.
throughout the years.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yep.
As you've built the business, do y'all still hear, because I know your dad was instrumental, and I've had a great time spending a little bit of time with your dad, but do you still hear him in your head? What's the thing you hear in your head as you're trying to run the business? Does his voice just like...
We don't have to hear him in our head. We can hear him from the
Yeah, I
back
was gonna say,
office.
what do you mean? He's very old school. So there's a lot of things that I don't know if this is going to sound bad, but it's honestly like you learn from those things.
Oh, and they would tell you too, because I said we didn't borrow any money, which made growing hard like early on, because it's a very capital intensive business. Like,
but realistically, you kind of had to finally get to a point with him where like, look, we have to grow.
We got to buy some new equipment. Yeah.
He was just he still is set and thinks everything the
But
old way is the right way.
The difference between us and him is he was a legit mechanic, so he could buy a piece of junk, where me and Jake can fix stuff.
Yeah,
but we couldn't do like he could. So he did it for 17 years, never borrowed $1. We got to the point where we started growing fairly quick, and honestly, it was shortly. Like when we started working with you guys, we still had all old trucks, but then that phone started ringing, and we needed something a little more reliable.
Well,
and so then we were like, well, I'm not paying cash for this $200,000 truck that we need every 6 months. So that was the first time.
Well, and I think you get to a point where like my dad is so like, it doesn't matter how much time, like work. You got to be there all the time. Sean, at that time, had a new family, like starting new family, young family. Jake didn't, but he still wanted to, I mean, he was barely 20, so he still wanted to go out and do things with his friends or whatever else.
Yeah.
So you get to a point, I think, where you say, okay, the amount of time we're putting into these trucks, it would make more sense for us to
just bite the bullet and
bite the
spend
bullet
money.
and get something that we're not spending all of this
And that
time
really
on.
was, now that I'm thinking about it, you guys probably have pictures. I think the entire fleet was old used trucks when we signed with Harbinger.
I
But
think
we had to
don't.
pick and choose. We had to pick and choose what was in the photos.
Our
And now
oldest truck now
every
is
single one's brand new.
what is like
Or within
2022 or 2023.
Yeah, within
Pretty
still
brand
warranty,
new.
whatever.
Y'all have probably contributed to the growth of other roll-off companies just with your discard trucks that you've taken out of operation.
Yeah.
I know they've called you asking for cans, right?
Oh, yeah.
a few years
They
ago
still
with
do all the
Spark,
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He I'm just trying to think like other things. He's also pretty hardcore. We kind of have to like listen to him if like customer service type of stuff, like, oh wait, we're not doing that, or that's not up to them, they don't get to make those decisions, and we're like, well, we're trying to keep these customers here. Like we want the good relationships.
I imagine the value of the right customer for ADM today is a little different than the value of the residential trash customer back in the day.
Yeah.
$10 a month or
Yeah, you're talking $30 a quarter
Exactly.
versus, I mean, very, very different. So I don't know. So I don't want that to come off the wrong way. But we
Different
like
times.
take what he says, and we kind of learn from. Okay, this is what you would have done. Maybe not now.
No, he'll tell you, back to the trucks, he'll tell you himself, because once we started buying all new trucks and then he realized, wow, we don't have to work on these things every day. He'll still tell you, we should have done that. You guys are right. We should have done that
Something
sooner.
came up recently when Sean found that flash drive, and I said, why didn't y'all have any 15 yards? That was, my dad was gung-ho about not doing 15 yards. He thought that was going to be a waste.
Of a dumpster.
Yeah, 15-yard dumpster. He thought it was going to be a waste. Nobody's going to want them.
And they sold out immediately.
They are like, everyone wants a 15-yard dumpster.
Yeah, it's a residential friendly. It's
Yeah.
smaller and a little cheaper.
So that's kind of one of those, we take what he says and you're like, okay, well, we're going to do it anyways and see how it's going to go.
Pans out, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that decision-making paradigm like in that a lot of our partners, I'd say a fair number of them have some sort of multi-generational component in their business. What was that relationship like working with your dad in terms of the decisions that he would make or that you would make?
It was really just who could yell loudest. And that's how we decided.
There's been some situations.
No, over the years, I'm sure there was plenty of
Heated
arguments or whatever, but that's also if you get three males in the same room that are all arguing for their opinion.
Yeah. I came in 2015, 16, so multiple years into it being, by the time I came, there was office staff, probably like 2 girls in the office. I came in to manage the office. Sean's wife worked there. She was stepping back to stay at home. I mean, there was plenty of times where I'm like, oh, they're going at it back there.
So what advice would you give to people that are in that world, like dealing with multi-generational family and business? It can be a very rewarding thing or it can be a very challenging thing. So what advice do you have for people in that situation?
As much as possible, I guess, keep work separate. I mean, turn it off at 5 o'clock.
There's
if you
never,
can.
I was going to say, I don't think even if they had like
it never spilled into like
on
a
Monday,
personal.
we'd still get together. My parents used to have like pool party or gatherings at their house every
cookouts
Sunday.
every Sunday fun
and
day.
it didn't matter if they got in an argument on Thursday or Friday. It was work.
We all wanted the same. I mean, everybody had the same goal,
Well, I
is to
think
grow the
what
business.
it
It just
is
might be a difference in opinion on how to do something.
Yeah. Well, and then it comes down to, that's kind of like the positive and the negative of working with family. The positive is you're comfortable enough, you can speak your mind and say what you want to say, especially our family. We are very like, we're just going to tell you what we think
You would
about
probably
that
fire us.
situation. Yeah. We're just going to say what we think.
But they're also very decisive. I remember the very first meeting after we presented all of our findings, y'all had me step outside.
And we decided within like 30 seconds.
They came out and said, yeah, we're going to move forward with it. It's like, I've never had that happen before. It's like, yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, it's high emotion. I think you kind of get into like, versus if it was 2 individuals that are not related, you kind of keep your calm and keep your cool. With family members, you're kind of not like that.
From my dad's point of view, I can see it because for 17 years, I mean, my mom, yes, but he was the sole owner. So I could imagine in my situation, 15 years from now, one of my sons telling me to do something different, I'd probably be like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
you're
my-
still the
I know what I'm
you're still
doing.
my child.
Yeah. So I get it.
Did y'all have to define roles for yourselves really early on?
It changed, and it still changes. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we ever had a formal, like, hey, you handle this, you handle this. We all know what needs to get done. None of us are going to leave until it's done. And I know if Jake's doing something, it's going to get done, and vice versa. So I don't.
Just stronger together.
Yeah.
Right? Everything can get done
Yeah. And then as we grew and hired office managers and marketing people, then yeah, we were doing, staying in our own lanes, I guess, more. But yeah, there was never a formal, you do this, I do this.
So one thing I'm very interested in is every time I've been at the ADM office or we've had the opportunity to interview your team members and your employees, I mean, even the fact that you're talking about a guy who's employee number 2 or 3 and he's still with you today, how have you built that company culture, that environment where people feel valued and appreciated? And really, why? Where does that come from?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but the little bit of time I was at corporate, I know how drivers, I guess, are treated at corporate versus, I mean, I talk to the guys all the time. Like Jake does, Taylor does, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've known some of them for years. It's definitely not that you're a corporate driver, you're a number, clock in, clock out, get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if it was intentional, it was just the natural way of doing it, I guess, and how we've grown. Because we're still a really small company, so it's
Yeah.
not like we have
Still small
hundreds of
business.
employees that we don't talk to. And
But
I
you
think
kind of, we
you-
understand, we're going to understand that if they've got, everybody has lives. And I think
And I
you
think
run into
they're
that
all-
issue with
they're all
corporate
treated
companies,
fair.
they don't.
we're not pushovers. You know what to expect out of us. We know what to expect out of you.
Yeah.
You're going to get paid well. You're going to get treated well. And it's worked. I mean,
Yeah.
So what's, in a lot of companies, that's even small companies, not necessarily the case, right?
oh yeah.
So I'm curious, like, where did that concept come from? Like the motivation
Honestly, kind of pulls from ADM sanitation. ADM was not like that with my dad. Dad was
Well,
not.
it was super strict. But
And I think Sean and Jake kind of rolled into ADM Rolloff, and again, that was like a learning. We saw how that was. Not that Dad was the worst person in the world with employees, but
he was a Marine.
it
I mean,
was-
he's straight out of the Marine Corps.
Corps,
So
yeah.
it was,
I
yeah,
mean,
it was.
he-
You're late. Yeah.
he didn't really have a whole lot of time to.
You're late.
sit
And you
and
said your car won't
chit-chat
crank.
with
Not
you.
my problem.
Not my
Like,
problem. Exactly.
yeah.
So Sean and Jake kind of experienced that working underneath him. You feel how that feels, and you roll into ADM
And
Rolloff.
we've,
And Sean and Jake say all the time, like, we don't want it. It does that. We don't want that to be the case. Like, if you need off for, I don't need all the details. Like, we understand that you have things going
And then
on.
some of the other stuff, I wasn't involved in like the financials, I guess, of my parents' company, so I don't know exactly, but I know it was bootstrapped and it was a different time and whatever. They didn't have the opportunity to provide health insurance and retirement and
Yeah.
all of that good stuff, and we didn't either in the very beginning. But that helped a lot with hiring and retaining,
Yeah.
because in our area, minus the big corporates, most of the mom and pop garbage companies can't afford it.
Don't.
So we were the only one around that you could.
Especially with like covering expenses
Yeah.
for them. So
Yeah.
I mean, most of them, if they offer it, it's just you're out of pocket. So
That was huge, and that probably only started what,
5 or 6
years ago. The
Yeah.
401ks and
obviously, as we
all that
grew,
good stuff.
That was ahead of the big growth spurts too. Y'all were going out on a limb doing that early in the company's development.
yeah.
Well,
And
it was.
it benefit. I mean, right off the rip, most of the employees were interested in it and wanted it. So you want to be able to offer that if you can.
Yeah. Well, I've been around enough drivers over however many years now. I would rather attract the good ones, because I know one good driver is better than 3
Yeah.
For sure.
bad drivers.
For sure.
So what do you think if you could give advice to anyone that's looking to hire those types of people? Like, what would you tell them to like find the best, the good people? What are they looking for?
Well, I don't even care about experience. I mean, we tell people now,
Yeah.
and actually almost every time I interview them, I'm like, are you going to show up? Are you going to call in every time you got a tummy ache? Like we got a lot of work.
We're a
like,
small business. We need people that
are
are,
you gonna-
going to be
are you going
here
to show
and-
up, be reliable, and don't break stuff? Like,
Yeah.
be safe. Like,
Basically, if you
we can teach you everything else. Like, but if you're reckless or you're,
Like,
you know,
we'll take care of you as long as you're.
yeah.
But in your
you know,
case, though, they
working
do have
for
to have a
us.
CDL.
Yeah.
They do have to have a CDL.
CDL, and
I
then-
will say, over the years, it has gotten that much harder.
It's gotten harder, and
I mean,
insurance
like,
has gotten
insurance.
strict.
So, like Sean was saying, Jake turned 18, got a CDL.
That wouldn't
he could
even work
drive.
now.
You can't even do that. If you get your CDL, insurance will not cover a CDL driver until that CDL driver has had 3
Which makes
years
no
of
sense.
experience.
Because where are they supposed to get experience if
Where are
you
they
won't
supposed
cover
to
them?
get experience if you
getting
won't cover them?
Experience at
You want them to
best.
just
Yeah.
drive around illegally
Yeah,
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
for
Exactly
3
what they're
years?
saying.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it was not like that. I mean, when I took over,
Everybody was
when
covered.
I
It didn't
when
matter.
I started in the office, my mom was still kind of like dealing with like back office type stuff, like the insurances and health insurance and those things. When I took that over, insurance was a breeze to add a new driver. Now you have to like triple check to make sure they're
Well,
going
and then it was just here in the last couple of years, the government made it harder too. It used to be anybody could go take a CDL test. You could just go pass the whatever you didn't have to do anything. Now you have to go to like a state certified
Yeah.
school. So it made it really hard because these schools are, you know, $5,000. So if you're an 18-year-old kid, you don't have $5,000 if you want to go to a CDL school. And then even if you do, nobody's going to cover you anyway. And like I said, that stuff didn't exist just 5-6 years ago.
I feel like one of the employees that we interviewed, didn't they talk about that they had helped them get a CDL?
We've
They're
helped.
Sean.
We helped a
We
bunch.
have a lot of drivers that
We've had
basically
several.
they started
As laborers
just as
and then worked their
laborers,
way
and
up.
we worked their way into.
We're like their sponsor
Yeah.
to their growth into the company.
We did that with several. And that was,
And that kind of helps with their. I mean, they.
well, I liked it. You were talking about
You
what are you looking for
retained
when
them.
hiring? Like one of the guys she's talking about, he's been on some of y'all's videos before. Great. I say kid. I feel like he was a kid when we hired him.
He was.
But
We're a man now.
yeah, but he wasn't qualified to do anything, but he just showed up and he was a laborer for us. And then when we built the transfer station, he ran heavy equipment. He wanted to do better for himself, so he wanted to get a CDL, and we helped him all along the way,
Yeah.
which we did with a few of them. Shoot, I forget where I was going with that.
Helping someone get their CDL.
Yeah, so we did it with several of them because we were training them from day one on what we
You know that they're
expect.
gonna. Yes, exactly.
What we expect, we're going to know how they've been trained because
Yeah.
I've hired plenty of guys that have, oh, I got a ton of experience.
Well, and
Well,
I
yeah,
think-
and they do it their way, and it might not be the safest or, you know,
Well, and
you
it
don't know
makes
who taught
them.
them.
I think it makes them appreciate you too. Like as an employer, like
Oh,
you
yeah.
helped me get to this point, and maybe they become more, interested.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. They have an interest, a reason to stay around.
Oh, yeah.
You
Well, I definitely,
helped them out.
especially Thershawn. I'm
Well,
not,
and then
I'm not
that
old enough,
particular
but
driver, Thershawn, he actually left and he came
came
back.
right back. He thought he had an opportunity to go drive.
Yeah.
A lot of CDL drivers think if they get in a tractor trailer and go over the road,
And you
that
know
they're
what
going to
it
make a ton,
is?
because they advertise they're going to make a ton of money. Well, your life is terrible. You're on the road all
Well,
the time.
And they
Yeah.
realize there you are. You're now working for someone who just looks at you as someone who's clocking in. and
Especially a
clocking
big
out.
corporate carrier, and yeah,
And what
you're
are you delivering? Right?
Yeah.
Not physically what are you delivering, but
Yeah.
from an hour
What are you getting
standpoint,
out of
are you hitting the
yeah.
Yeah, the
hours
grass
and if
is
you
not
need to
always
be-
greener.
So he came right back, and
We've had D left and came
oh,
back.
over the years, yeah.
Many.
Which honestly, I guess that we must not be that bad because the
They go
few that
back.
have left try to come back.
If you're hiring for the personality, for the person themselves, and for who they are, and training up, we've experienced this too. We will hire people that have some experience in the business, but not so much that we have to untrain bad habits.
Yeah.
If we know
Yeah.
they're a good person, that their heart is in it, that they're motivated,
It
that
really.
person is going to go so far.
You're just kind of talking to learn how the person's personality, in my opinion, like with interviewing someone.
Yeah.
I really, especially in the office, so like what we do. Most people, well, I think everyone we've hired within the office is not coming from within the industry. They have no clue. Some of these people come in and they don't even know what they're there for. They just think, oh, I'm here for a customer
General
service
office, yeah.
position.
I'll be
So,
answering phones and taking orders. Sounds
At that
Yep.
point, I'm just getting a feel for, are they going to be like a good mesh and a good vibe with the group that we have up there? And I mean, the girls that we have in the office now have been with us for 4 years. We are a great vibe.
We haven't had to
vibe.
add. We haven't add or lost in a while.
Yes.
And I love it.
Yeah, when we
Because
first started working together, we were running front office help ads all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
I mean, almost as much as hire our services.
Because
we were
all
running
all it
ads.
takes is
Because it
one
was
person
churning.
in there
Yep.
that's kind of like a cancer, and it
That's
just
what
If Dad
causes
had a
all
nose
these.
for that cancer, he would snuff
Yeah.
that
Oh,
out.
trust me. In the beginning, when I came in, it was. I mean, you've seen The Office, and even then, it was smaller than it is now. I'm like, how is there conversations about each other in the same room? Like, guys, this is ridiculous. What are we doing?
Childish.
One would come this way and one would come that way. So once you get a good
So lay that wisdom on us. How do you get that cancer out?
Well, in our case,
Fire
process.
yeah.
Fire
In
slow,
our
fire
case,
quick.
Yeah.
Well, you try to like calm the situation as much as you can, like find out, okay, where's this coming from, and try to make it work out. But I don't know. We hired
Most of the office staff, though, over the years, naturally, a lot of the times it's been younger, female. They weren't, when we had higher turnover, a lot of it was just, it was never going to be their career anyway. So
No.
a lot of them we didn't have to fire. They just moved on.
Yeah.
And as we grew, honestly, we kind of, I don't know if I should even say that we didn't want to hire like 18-year-olds because they hiring
We tried.
people a
I
little
mean,
bit older.
You do. Well, there's
You
nothing
wanted to hire
wrong in
people who
saying
this is a
that.
good
You,
fit for.
you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
good, you have a group going, and you kind of, on the flip side of that, same thing with like, at one point in time, my mom was going to come back in the office, and I was like, you do not fit in here. You're not going to vibe with this. Like, you're not going to fit in. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to come back in the office. But I don't know. Once you get a good group, you're really going to do your best to kind of like hold on to that. And I think that's the same for drivers. Like when we get to a point where we've got it's kind of honestly like you're waiting on some kind of bomb to drop because you're like, this is going to, this
Don't
is
say that
going,
because it's been really, really smooth for a while.
this is going really well.
Well,
Right before Christmas, you're going to say that?
Well, if anything, it would be after Christmas. So. But no, you just kind of hold on to what you got.
Well, I think if I had to just assume based upon a few conversations with different employees that I've talked to over the years at ADM, I think one of the things that really they appreciate is the growth of the company, like seeing it grow. They see.
Well, I
there
think
are
so, and I
opportunities
think
there.
especially the ones that have been with us for years, they know that me and Jake were right there in the trenches doing the exact same thing as them for years.
Yeah.
For
Been there, done
years.
that.
I was there at the front door opening up the shop when they were clocking in. I was pulling a truck up right next to them, airing up
it's not-
tires.
They're
And-
not sitting in the office in,
and
no offense
again-
to everybody else, but like suit and tie type situations. They've been in that.
They've
They
been
know.
100%. So a lot of the big corporates, like the operations managers and stuff, they're hiring them just because they have management experience somewhere.
Yep.
But it's not.
They don't
And
know the business.
my
They don't
guys,
run the business.
my guys know any situation they're in on. It can be the most difficult construction site or a dumpster under a skyscraper, what you name it. Sean's done it. Like Jake's done it.
And you got
so
their back.
You
And they
can
can
call
relate,
me
yeah.
and we can talk about it, or if we need to go help you,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do it. They know that we know it. Like
Yeah,
it's
or
not.
if they feel like they're in a sticky situation where it's like, oh, this doesn't seem like I should be doing
Stop the
this.
truck immediately.
We agree. Like
I'll send the
they've done
closest,
it,
the
not me.
driver closest to you with most experience, or me or Jake are heading your
Yeah.
way. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, because like I said, we've done it all. And I like to joke with all of them. I still say I'm better than all of you. I'll come out. Don't make me crank the truck up tomorrow. I'll work a circle around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
core values that we have at Harbinger is growth is collective. In fact, this sign is going to be eventually replaced with that core value. This is another one of our core values. But the whole idea is that if a company is growing and it's healthy,
Yeah.
It's good for everybody.
then it's good for
sure.
everyone. And you really can't attract and retain great talent if there's
Yep.
no place for them to go.
Yeah.
Right? If
Yeah.
there's no
Yep.
opportunity for them
Yep.
to
Yeah.
grow in their
Yep.
career. I mean, I would hate to be in a company where I didn't have, a vision of where we
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
go or
Well,
where
I think
could go.
all of them that have been with us long enough, they've seen. I mean, over the years, they've seen the benefits get better. They've seen the pay get better. They've seen the equipment get better. They've seen
And they're treated.
they're
like
treated good. They know
humans.
they know we're growing. They've seen it, so they know there's opportunities. So yeah, I think that's huge.
Internal PR boost that is too, that you have these people on staff that can tell the story to the new ones that are coming in.
Yeah.
You don't have to profess that to them.
Oh,
they
and
can
they
say
do
what
it. You can sit when they're all getting in at the end of the day. Like the older ones will sit there and talk to like the newer drivers and be like, "Oh yeah, back then, and this is how we
Yep.
did it." They definitely talk. I think the fact that newer drivers see these other drivers who've been stuck around this long, there's a reason why. Like
Yeah.
they're not ran off.
I mean, that's culture when you really
Yeah.
define it. Like
Yeah.
culture is shared values, shared beliefs, and shared experiences. And so there's always going to be a culture no matter what group of people you're around. Like it
Yeah.
creates itself. But
Yeah.
if that culture is one of, hey, we value our relationships, we value growth, that creates the type of behavior that you want for your team.
Yep.
It's still work. It's called work for a reason.
Yeah.
It's what you do while you're doing it that makes the difference.
Yeah.
Yep. And we,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we talking about like that. We have, I mean, I like everybody we got, but we got a few that are rock stars that've been with us for years now. That, I mean, it happens all the time. A very common thing is like a big grocery store, the compactors behind the store. If they lose power to the store, they normally have to dispose of all the contents of the freezer. So we get a lot of emergency calls. They might come literally at midnight.
Yep.
I got a handful of guys. I don't care when the phone call. Yep, heading in.
Yeah.
I got it.
Or Saturdays, we don't normally operate on Saturdays. They just
Yep.
worked a.
No, of course they
50-hour
get
week.
paid for it. It's not like they're doing it at the good,
Right.
but they know, hey, Sean's gonna take care of me on Monday, and
Exactly.
we got to go get this done.
Well, I mean, if you're asking a team member to put in just what I define as discretionary effort, the effort they aren't required to always
Yeah.
put in. Well, if you're putting
Discretionary
in
pay.
Exactly, if they see a company that's giving back to them and
Yeah.
doing things they don't have to do, it makes them want to contribute and be a part of
Well,
that.
because there's a bunch of other companies in the same industry that, like that example, they'll have a regular schedule and they'll have a rotating weekend schedule, and you'll just be on call. Which, yeah, you can do that, and we could do that. But if I got a
You
bunch
have
of rock stars that, hey,
Yeah.
hey, call me, like.
Yeah, we have some that don't want to work Saturdays, and
that's fine. I got enough
you
that
honor
want
that
to.
and say, I understand. I wouldn't.
Well, we
you
got-
already worked 45, 50
we got
hours.
a couple guys that are technically retired and then
Yeah,
started
came
working for
back.
us. So and I
They
get
don't
it.
care. But then you
Just
have
give me
your
my-
other drivers that's kind of what I was gonna say earlier. In terms of like you have other companies that say, okay, they've hit overtime, get them off the
Get 'em off
clock.
the clock.
We're not taking any more because they're costing us this much at this point. We're not like that. Like
No.
Sean and Jake, every business has like slower seasons, and apparently we don't know where ours is anymore. It's just always busy.
Maybe
But,
the week of Christmas.
Maybe the
That's why we're here
Christmas.
right now.
Yeah. But like Sean and Jake, I've heard them. I mean, they say, they don't want the drivers to feel like they're getting less hours than they're used to, because that they have lives and
Yeah.
they need to be taken care of, and you want to keep them happy.
Fortunately, Harbingers help the phones ring, so we don't have to.
Well, that's a great segue.
Yeah.
Tell us about the growth that you've experienced at ADM. Where that growth. I'm not trying to like just completely set you up here, but
No. Well, when did exactly we start working together?
Because me and
About
Sean
5
were
years.
talking about
Has
this.
it been that
I
long?
think it's been 5 years.
Sean
been a
thinks
blur.
that he started speaking with y'all before I was there. Does that sound
That's a
familiar?
fact.
What year was
Amber.
it?
Yeah.
Amber
Well, I
in
was
front
there
of
when
us.
Amber was there. Okay.
Yeah, but you were working
I was
like
there,
one day a
one
week.
day a week.
Yeah, she started like one day a week just
Yeah,
doing
I had
back
it was
office
right when I
stuff.
had my firstborn. I was only there one day a week to do like piddly stuff. But what year was it? 2015, 2016? Does that
Something
sound
like
right?
that.
No, because it's 2024 now. It would have been 2018.
We're in 2024 now. I've been here almost 5 years.
2019.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I started working like
Is this before
full-time.
you guys?
20. Yeah, I was handed the website refresh. So the website was already up when I started almost 5 years ago, and we were going through that first round.
So
of
it's 6
updates.
years then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you
that
remember
was right
how-
around the time I started working technically full time with ADM.
when I started, you were like in and out a little bit.
Yeah.
You were this mythical tailor that would sweep.
How many employees would you have had then? We're gonna flip, and we're
Uh,
gonna talk about how you've grown
Ask
so much.
you.
I think we had like 8 team
I was gonna
members
say
at the
because I
time.
feel like
Sean said it was very
When y'all
few.
first started working together?
yeah, I feel like I pretty much knew everybody.
Yeah.
So we've
I was
kind of
somewhere around 12.
we've done the
Yeah.
same thing at the
We
same
were
time.
together, yeah.
So when I was right around the same time Harbinger came into play. So, but I definitely was still communicating because the company marketing that we were working with before y'all, I communicated back and forth with them. But at that time, there was 1 or 2 girls in the office.
Again, back to
We teetered.
document everything, just to look back. I don't remember where we were at exactly, number of trucks, how many dumpsters a day. I don't remember all
Well, I
that.
can
I
tell you
do.
this.
It was 3 or 4 trucks.
Yeah.
I can tell you
Right.
there was 1, possibly 2 office girls. Mind you, those 2 office girls were also doing billing, things to keep their time busy.
Yeah.
And we now have 4.
That's
Office.
deceptive though. We have such an efficient office. Like if you were comparing, it would be like 10 now. Which
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I mean.
that's
Okay, that's another thing. Like
some of
we
our
are supposed to
processes
change.
and
But what I'm
systems.
saying is we had 2 girls then that was kind of handling everything and had downtime versus now we've got 5 that are consistently like
But
phones
I don't remember exactly
and emailing and
what.
just putting orders.
I mean, I remember the client of yours, the 770 tree guy, and I remember watching his business explode. And I remember talking to him and, hey, you got all this new equipment. And I remember him saying, hey, I'll put you in touch with my marketing guy. And I think you must have called me like shortly thereafter. We weren't doing bad in business by any means, but it was just kind of just plugging along. And we had hired a couple of, general SEO.
That kind of loops Dad back into the whole thing because my dad was very like.
Well, we can't make fun of him. He thought we could just build a website and run ourselves.
Yeah.
And as long as you put the keywords in there, hey, that's as best
What
as
is
you're gonna
that
get.
stuff? I mean, I don't want to like
Wix.
name drop.
Wasn't it Wix that you
Yeah,
could
he was
build?
like,
Yeah.
I've been looking, I can do this, and we're like.
So that was the very first like thing we did, and obviously that was a joke.
And then the guy
There
the
was 2
marketing.
before them.
No names.
I don't remember.
Marketing people that he had utilized, we've told you all about this, where they would send us what they want to post, and I'm like, none of this is even like.
But I will say,
grammatically
in their
correct.
defense, I don't remember who the very first one was. Got very little results. Then it definitely felt like an upgrade. I don't remember how much we grew to that guy, but the phone rang a little bit more. And then when we met up with you guys, that's when it was pretty explosive ever since then. And then a couple years after that would have been when we hired our first saleswoman. She's a rock star.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been.
It,
Well, if you think it was like four-ish trucks, then that sounds about right.
I think
And it's
when
been.
I started, there were 6 trucks because we could fit them all.
And we would have always
One
had one as a
shot.
backup
one
too.
with y'all standing in front of it.
It would have been one. At least one would have been a backup.
Yes.
But I
Me
feel
and Jake
like
would have been driving too.
Beyond just what y'all are doing in the back end of things, there's things that we utilize now that we probably wouldn't be unless there kind of was that just word of advice from y'all. So we didn't have Vonage back then where we were like monitoring.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
where we-
technology's
technology-wise,
Big time.
just plenty of things. We didn't have like where we were doing email blasts. There was plenty of things that
lot
we
of
were not
stuff.
utilizing.
We
Gathering,
just existed and hoped the
like
phone rang.
Yeah.
reviews, for example. That was just like, hopefully somebody leaves a good review.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
So I'm curious, early on, obviously, a team of 8, but I'm curious, in your memory, what was it that caused you to say, hey, you know what, what was said behind the door when I stepped out that made y'all say, you know what, we're going to go with Harbinger?
I know you were a lot smaller then, but you had the people that I talked to that
The
were already
client.
working with you
yeah, the referral.
vouch for you. And I saw it with my own eyes with a couple of your clients. And then we just gambled.
Yeah.
We hoped you knew what you were talking about.
I'm sure most of it has to do with Sean is very big on like word of mouth, like somebody that you actually know that is utilizing working with somebody. He's gonna like, kind of trust that, I think. So
And then
that
it
probably
didn't.
had a lot to do with
And then
it.
as we've over the years, as we've
Not to mention the fact that we even saw y'all physically, because everyone we worked with before couldn't tell
Yeah.
you what they looked like. Never met them, never
Yeah.
spoke with them on the phone. Was
an
very
cold email from somewhere.
an email maybe once a month with some stuff I don't understand.
No.
Like,
But and then once you got your foot in the door, it didn't really matter because then the results spoke for themselves.
So what were those early results where you're just like, hey, I think I made a good gamble?
I can still remember you saying, you're gonna have to trust me. SEO is not instant.
Takes
Give
time.
us 90 days or whatever you said. And I do vividly remember thinking, day 91, I was like, shit, phone's ringing.
yeah, it's,
And then it seemed to kept going.
And I do think a lot of it has to do with like y'all's presence, like just the constant communication
Yeah.
is there. We talk to y'all, maybe not so much right now, but in that beginning, and especially in those beginning stages, as much as we talk to employees within the office.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I remember vividly the time you called me and you said, hey, I want to take Steven to Las Vegas to What was
Waste
the
Expo.
Trade show, by the way. This was
Yeah.
What was the
really a trade show.
We're gonna go to Vegas.
what was the reason for that again?
Waste Expo. What everything was happening in the business. Y'all didn't have a booth. We were literally going to see what are they doing. And I thought it was great because the last thing I would ever want, and we've seen this play out in real time, is for any of our partners to go to a trade show like that because sharks are in the water, right? There's 20 of me roaming the halls of a trade show just waiting for Sean to show up. You know exactly what I mean. I appreciate that. But there's 20 people waiting to talk to Sean and say, yeah, man, you need to come with us. Let me show you what we've got. But we got to go through the whole show and see what technology's out there. What can we be doing? Are these cool dumpsters? Are these the dumpsters we want to really get with?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or are these the
Well, and
software
y'all put in so
programs?
much time to actually learn the industry. Like,
Well, I've said that before.
the fact
you
I
could
can
have
almost,
a job at a garbage
I was
company.
gonna say we can talk to
He
you about
does.
Rolloff and you fully understand. You fully understand what we are doing.
Yeah.
And you, even if you don't, you can tell that you all actually want to know. Like,
Yeah.
explain this to me.
It's not a let me
Just
just
kind
throw
of
some
like now that
keyboards into a
we're
blog post.
that we've entered into portable toilets, which is a whole nother, side of things that we're even learning. Y'all are trying to learn as well. So that just speaks volumes because I feel like other marketing companies or an individual that you're hiring for your marketing, they just know or they act like they just know what they know. Like I know how to utilize
Google.
do things. Yes, Google ads.
I always tell potential partners that like there's a lot of people out there who understand Google Ads, website, etc. Like understanding those technical things is only part of the process. You got to understand the business, like understand like truly who you guys are, but then understand and care enough to go in and actually run it as it should be run.
If you don't know the industry and the business, then how do you know who we're going after? Like, how do you know?
You got to
who
know
we
the
need?
customers.
Yeah, the customer base.
Now, how long do you feel like it took for Steven to be at that level for y'all? Like where you truly looked at him as your marketing director?
And like I said in the beginning,
He's getting there. Give him a couple more months.
There was a lot of lots of conversation in the beginning.
No, I'm serious. I feel like Steven's like an industry expert. Like, and I know you guys have other clients that are in the garbage business now too, so it's not just us that taught them, but
Y'all taught
no,
most
it
of
was.
us.
That's why we're so like I try to force myself to not call Steven. I'm like, I have other people I should call.
He's too
I don't need to call
important.
Steven, but I really want to call Steven because he's gonna understand.
We can get the right people on our teams that are just inquisitive about how things work and really want to understand the operations of the business. Everything else comes. And that's what we preach upstairs in our marketing director area is just don't stop being curious. Figure out what's going on with the business. We know what the tools are. We know what the tactics are. If you understand the business, you can understand how to deploy those tactics. Because not everything is right for everything, right? There are certain things that we can do that I wouldn't recommend to y'all because it wouldn't make sense.
Well, I always say like, even to y'all, well, give that to me like in elementary term. I'm more than happy to. Yes, I'm more than happy to try to explain Rolloff to you as, like as a sixth grader in lame terms, however you need to put it. But like I said, other marketing companies are not doing that. They don't really care what you're doing.
It was
as long
like I
as,
said, it was dropped 10 keywords in a blog post, and
Hope for the
good
best.
luck.
Let the tool
Yeah.
be the tool.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
yeah, and
It
you,
doesn't work
and you see
successfully
nothing
that
from
way.
it.
Yeah.
But over the last 6 years, it has grown
A lot.
a lot.
So when these companies call you and they're always wanting to speak to Sean from ADM Rolloff because the case study that we show them, they're just like I want to talk to this guy. What is it that you say about what it's like to work with Harbinger?
Just tell them the truth. Tell them the story. I mean, like I said, I forget exactly, but it was something about 90 days, and he explained all of that, and now I can look back in our computer system, and I can just see, okay, and then we just started climbing. And then you guys would come back to us, or we'd go to you after a year or 2 years, hey, it's going great, what can we do to add to it? And there's never been a time where you have said, hey, just give me more money. There's always, the sales have always followed it, so.
Well, I was going to say, numbers aside, numbers aside, obviously you can look at numbers and say, okay, there's been growth, but you feel the growth.
Oh, yeah.
You can feel the growth. And then we've thrown so many curveballs into the play along the way, obviously. Now we're also going to open the transfer
opening the transfer station. Now we're going to move the transfer
we're going to do
station.
portable toilets, and then
We're going to crush concrete.
yeah. So, and y'all have kind of listened to that and rolled with it and actually absorbed the information and said, okay, this is what we think is best and how we should tackle this. Meanwhile, we probably if we were way back when, with the people that we were with previously, we would have never even told them about that because
There's no point.
they're not interested in knowing about that.
They're not a partner, they're a vendor.
Yeah.
Here's the full circle moment, because y'all are a small business, we're a small business. You guys have to make decisions on what you're doing in your business based on how that's going to pay off for the business, right? You're not going to buy a new truck just saying, oh, it's time to buy a new truck.
Yeah.
You know that there's a need for that truck.
Yep.
We're going through the same thing with what we're recommending for the marketing of your business. We're not just going to recommend, oh, do this, throw this on the mix, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
We're putting in the time up front to figure out, is this really a good thing to do? Do we want to recommend this? What's it going to pay as a value? Not just money, but is there a value that comes with this additional service?
And then with us, instead of it's buying a new truck to scale, it's usually hiring a new teamer with additional expertise.
Yeah.
And then our partners get to see that value.
Yeah.
We're at almost 90 employees now, so it's like going from 8 to 90. The people that are able to work on all of your marketing is just way better than what it has been.
Oh, yeah.
In the past.
Well, I thought you guys were good in the beginning, but there's a noticeable difference. I mean, you guys have leveled up many, many times, so.
Yeah.
Just like y'all have. We've had to.
Yeah.
You guys had to. You can make a choice to be a stagnant business, and y'all could have. You could have been happy
boring.
with 6 trucks, right?
That's right.
It's boring.
And you
trucks
can't
is fine.
attract, like we were talking about earlier, good people.
And I feel like there's been plenty of times throughout the last several years where we are busy and we kind of go, we're growing, we're busy, Sean's busy, I'm busy, the office is busy. The people that you talk to, y'all are relying on to communicate with ADM, we're busy. And y'all are, I think you recognize that and you say, hey, pull back in here, we need to focus on this. But because we're already busy, we're not necessarily thinking about what else could we be doing or how else could we grow. And y'all have nudged us to say, this is great. We're glad you're busy and you didn't answer my email last week, but here, we need this. What do you want to do?
Yeah. All of our marketing directors are kings and queens of stopping, right? If the email goes unanswered,
I'm really bad about it.
Hey, we're coming by. I'm literally on my way. We're coming over right now.
We're on a texting basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
You actually had to do that this week with us.
Yep.
Where none of us answered your email and you were like, hey, here's the text version of that email.
I'm curious, what went through your head the first time y'all saw one of our annual marketing plans?
Oh my gosh.
I'm overwhelmed's not the word. I guess impressed.
Yeah, no, it's like
because we hadn't ever dealt with anything.
Okay, word. They're 90
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, but it was.
It is. It's like, holy cow, this is really thought out.
They look
and
professional.
Very.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That was. I think I was impressed by that, but I was way more impressed the first time I ever saw any video you guys did. Your videography was incredible.
Oh,
and
so
I
the very
still
first
on
one I
social media,
remember-
that's what people reach out about.
Is the first one the one that was at Mom and Dad's house?
Nope, the first one was Dumpster Dan throwing the mattresses over.
Yeah, right before I started, Dumpster Dan.
thought it
Dumpster
was-
Dan was in the can already.
Yep.
That's right.
Oh, I thought it was the one with
No.
Drew and Nikki.
That was a couple years after
That
that.
was the follow-up.
Yeah,
That was
Dumpster
okay.
Dan again.
That was ADM.
I thought you were about to
Yeah.
say you were way more
Yeah.
impressed with
We've done
their.
a series of
But no,
I thought you were gonna say you were way more impressed when you saw their calendar that we just got.
Well, that was impressive too.
That was super
It was
right.
pretty slick.
Me and Jake
But
went
no,
through many pages.
The video.
The quotes, yeah. For
Yes!
who doesn't know, our gift to our partners this year.
I like the
was-
cookbook.
Oh, you're welcome.
Was that a couple years ago?
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
that was a
2
couple
years
years ago. Yeah, make my jam alive.
Yeah.
It won't let you down.
Did you see my impression for the coffee?
I don't remember now.
Well, listen, what's funny about that is
It was just coffee, water.
Yes, I do
Start,
remember
yeah.
that. Yes, but what's funny is when we got it, Jake was flipping through it, and I was like, I don't think they even repeated an employee. And Jake was like, yes, they did. Jake took the time to argue with me and go through and find out how many times y'all had repeated. He used you. He's like, all right, let's find out how many times Steven's in there. I'm
we
like,
don't have
okay,
to-
I don't care about this.
We definitely
Out
don't.
of 10, how many did he count? Were there 3 or 4?
No, he ended up giving
Yeah,
up
he
at
was
some
around
point,
3,
but
Yeah.
It's a good motivational calendar.
I liked it. It's
a
on
lot
my
better
desk.
than the dad joke calendar that I got on my desk that I pepper everybody with every day.
it's
I don't
sitting.
know.
I think last year was still my favorite.
Lost more
The
employees this year from
the
that
bathroom
calendar.
book. That was, I think, from last year. That was my favorite.
The bathroom
Bathroom.
jokes book? Yeah, that was
That
good.
was funny.
Yeah.
It's too funny.
Question for you. One of the things that I feel like contributed a major part to the increase in phone call volume was the pin on the map in Atlanta. So
Oh,
you search
yes.
roll-off dumpsters,
Yes.
Atlanta, boom.
Well, it's done it again with Fayetteville.
yeah.
Well,
And
that was
McDonough.
I remember us having
a
that
big deal.
conversation with y'all. Sean actually was like, "Look, something's got to give. Why we have this big gap over here."
in
That
Fayetteville.
wasn't this long. That wasn't
No,
that
it was
long
only
ago.
a couple years ago. We had added. Well,
Not
we
even.
started in
Not
Hampton.
even. No, it wasn't.
It was a
It
year.
was,
It was
last year.
It was last
But was
year
it
we got that
Hampton?
pin established.
We
Hampton, Atlanta, McDonough.
Fayetteville because we tried to utilize one office and then that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But okay, anywho, I remember Sean. Sean does a lot of like to me and Jake for a while before he'll like get to the actual like, source. So he's something's got to give. What's going on in Fayetteville? And then that was when we kind of brought in the conversation with y'all to get a pin. A
It
Google.
was
And
as clear as the
since
nose on our face when you told us and showed us your coverage map of where all the jobs were going.
Yeah.
And there was literally like there was a geofence built around
Yeah.
Fayetteville.
Yeah.
There was no work going on there. And we knew in our hearts, man, we're seeing all the construction that's happening in the Fayetteville area and surrounding where it bleeds out into the county lines.
Yeah.
It's because you didn't have a location.
Well, and then since then we have not had to say, oh, it's still looking spare or
No, it's-
sparse. It's I
It's
mean
a-
it's filled in.
A truck just stays in Fayetteville all day, every day.
It's filled in.
But
It's one of the bigger leaps in faith that we like have to try to explain. Like, how is it that putting a sign on an office in
Yep.
a city that you're not
But it
at,
was,
like,
you're right, that's drastic. So I guess coasted for however many years, hired you guys, had some growth, and then adding that Atlanta location was huge. And Atlanta's tough, I get it, it's super competitive. God knows how many,
yeah, that was
technically-
not a 90-day. Like,
Yeah.
for
Well, I don't
McDonald's,
know.
that was 90 days, but for Atlanta, that was 6 months to a year.
yeah.
And you don't realize so like the expense of it. So
It's
you just
minimal
think
once you,
in our case we're doing what are they called? Like I mean it's satellite office. Minimal expense and
Yep.
great return from it.
Yeah.
I mean
Over 200 calls last
How
week.
Yeah.
quickly do you
Not
amortize
one.
the rent for the satellite?
well I can
location
just
over
say
the work
that
that's
the
being
Fayette
generated?
one
Fayette
dumpster for us,
Yeah.
one
the
dumpster.
Fayetteville
It's a good deal, I know.
location
Yeah, technically 2 or 3
Fayetteville
dumpsters.
location we're
technically,
around
but-
what $300 a month for that office space if
Yeah.
you get one dumpster out of that. I mean
Yeah. But Atlanta was huge. Obviously, Atlanta's a massive city. There's a ton of competition. There's a ton of roll-off companies, but it was drastic.
Yeah.
And it still is. I mean, we send half of our trucks crank up every morning and go straight to Atlanta and do not come south.
Yep.
They stay in Atlanta all day, every day.
Just that pin foothold allows us to tell the real ADM story too, right? Because y'all aren't one of the big boys that's
And
blind
y'all-
and care.
Well, the two below us are just brokers. They're not even
So-
there.
Yeah.
This kind of-
deliver on the promises that you make, and it sets y'all up to be head and shoulders
Yeah.
against all that
well, and
competition.
then this also kind of goes to show like y'all are kind of gonna work with us. Obviously, we had the Macon. Remember, we
Yeah,
did
and then we
Macon,
shut it down.
and
No fault of
y'all
anybody's, but-
jumped in on that with us. We had that location down there, and then we decided that that's not a good move, and y'all are
Pivot.
good. Okay, let's move elsewhere. Let's focus more on these areas and get out of Macon. It's just I forgot about that.
The beauty
down
is
there.
we were able to track all of it in real time, right?
Yeah.
Y'all were
Yeah.
seeing
You're not just
we're-
throwing-
We were seeing what kind of calls were being
Yeah.
generated, what kind of responses were being generated from our digital efforts, and it made it really easy to understand very quickly that area wasn't going to pay off.
Well, we knew what we had. If we were going to go down there at all, this is what we had to get out of it. And if it's not producing, then
It just wasn't there.
not worth it.
Yeah, the volume wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was a valiant attempt.
I won't say we won't go back, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more opportunity right now in Atlanta.
For sure.
A lot more. So you
And
don't have to,
north.
yeah,
And west.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, see, we know.
And
We know where
Savannah,
it's at.
All
and
kinds of fun.
Savannah, and Chattanooga.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, what's the future hold for ADM?
Without
on the
spoiling any
horizon.
secrets, right? We don't want to give the competition.
Oh, yeah,
away
it's full
up,
too much
so,
secret.
you know,
Just more growth, more
Uh,
exciting.
Just more
so
growth.
I know our
Yeah.
obviously more growth for Rolloff, but portable toilets and that side of what we call waste, ADM waste. It's one entity, but really need to.
There's a
Grow
ton of
that.
opportunity.
We wish.
There's a ton of opportunity in all of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We were just saying on the way here, if we could go back 5 years and start it then, we would have. That would have been
just a little
ideal.
earlier on
Yeah.
portable toilets.
and that's just
Yeah.
portable toilets. I mean, you guys have been around for
We-
the whole journey now.
You have to
You know, we
think-
just recently had our land rezone. that we own to build a much bigger transfer station.
Yeah.
As soon as that construction is done, the volume will
Well-
literally overnight quadruple, and that alone is.
And what you also
huge.
have to think is, go back. It's one of those like timing things around our outside sales. Lisa, you already name dropped, so that's fine. Lisa, when she came in, she brought in a bunch of customers, and at the time we were not offering portable toilets, and it's one of those things where when you got them for Rolloff, we should have got them for portable toilets, and it's harder
Like she
to
said, I wish we would have
change
done
them.
it 10 years ago. but-
Yes,
You can't
it's harder to
rebuild
change
that
them.
bridge back,
Now
yeah.
they have already kind of established something with whoever they're using. And it's kind of, portable toilets is a hard one because they're so out of sight, out of mind. Once it's on site, you don't have to really do anything with them. They don't want to go through the steps of
Canceling and hiring
canceling
somebody
and
else.
changing someone else. So it's
Yeah, as long
definitely,
as there's not a problem,
Yeah.
yes.
they're just
Yeah.
over in the corner.
It's
of the
easy.
site.
You
Yeah.
don't got to worry about them. They don't want to go through the headache of
Until
changing
there's a
them.
problem.
But so that would be there's huge growth there.
I do want to spend a few minutes talking about that role of a salesperson, like for your business specifically, because I think there's a huge amount of value there for any other companies in your space. Like, what was that process like? What was it that actually made you pull the trigger and hire Lisa?
I wonder if our old boss will listen to this.
Well, first off, our dad was not. He was
Just didn't see
not
a
on
need.
board.
Yeah, didn't see a need. He never had a salesperson, so what do we need a salesperson
Yeah,
for?
he didn't think it was necessary. It was right around the time we already had kind of like got on the hook with like really putting a budget into marketing.
I remember him having that conversation.
Yeah,
with
so
me.
we already-
We're
you
paying
got-
y'all to do that. Why do I need
Yes.
to be a person? to
So
do that?
his thought was, wow, we just took on, this was a need. We've decided to do this, and now y'all are wanting to also like bring someone else in. Well, why do we need them? Why do we need outside sales if we have very different, in our opinion? It took some
Yeah.
time to explain it to him.
But
And
the
kinda-
customers she gets and the customers Harbinger gets are coming from two completely different places.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them
Yeah.
overlap, but it's different.
There's some things that are not bought; they're sold.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
requires a relationship.
Yeah.
It requires someone actually
Sometimes
pick
it
up the
takes
phone.
6 months to sell them.
Yeah, exactly.
I talk to her
Face to
all the
face
time.
type of.
She's working on stuff that's happening next summer.
Yeah.
And that person's not searching the website to line that up yet. so-
Exactly, and especially if they already have. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the times your best customer is already working with someone else,
Yeah.
and unless that person's
Oh, yeah.
messing up, it's
Well,
hard
that's
to
what I
switch.
kind of like with toilets. It's a lot of these larger companies have someone they're already utilizing. They're comfortable. Like the last thing they want to do is worry about changing to a new hauler or a new vendor that's going to provide them. I think you get somebody out there, a salesperson that's face to face and says, "Let me take the hard work away from you." Like, you don't have to do anything. I will deliver these. All you have to do is remove these. Like, you're kind of, I think that is the value she brings. It's just the face. It's like the relationship.
I think.
And we have customers that are like, this kind of just goes to show customers that Lisa has brought in that have projects that are outside of our service areas, like way outside.
still
We
order
just
through
can't help
Lisa.
them. They will still order through Lisa, so
we broker
she
it.
will handle they want her to handle the communication. They know that she's going to make sure whatever it is that they're needing is handled.
The
That
best
just
salesperson
speaks.
is selling the relationship with the company, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Solving
it really
problems.
comes down to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we're able to partner with Lisa on the regular to support her efforts.
Yeah.
I got to watch this happen just from the passenger seat as Lisa was brought in. We were beating our heads against the wall trying to reach those corporate partners for y'all to make that big difference, because we had identified very early that
And they're
you know,
hard ones to get in.
they're
it's
really hard ones to get into, and it
and
needs
we
that
know
person.
We
Especially-
recognize
yeah,
that.
if it's a multi-billion-dollar construction company, then
We know that
They're
there's
not searching for you. They
No.
know who's
No.
out there.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in the industry, those types of services are word of mouth. They're finding out. They know people that have connections. Like,
She's been
who
very good
can-
at stepping on the construction site when somebody else screws up too,
Yeah.
though. And
Yeah,
It's only because
I'm gonna
she's
solve-
at the construction site
Yeah.
waiting for that to happen.
Well, and then
watching and making that relationship.
she jokes with us all the time too about, she was in the industry before, about how good our service is. She knows if she's wherever in Atlanta and she's got a multi-billion-dollar construction company that's asking for something, she knows if she calls Sean or Jake, we're gonna have a dumpster there in an hour.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
And she can
we're
sell
gonna
that.
build a
Yeah,
good
she
relationship
uses-
and make her job easy.
She takes the best part of ADM and uses it as her
Yeah.
pitch, essentially.
Because
Like
we're
family
small enough,
owned,
we can get it done.
Yeah, next day you cannot get that. You cannot get that with other other small roll-off
No.
companies. You're talking days out, and people are not patient. I mean, a lot of these, it's not.
need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
It's a
need it.
current need.
They're within their business. They can't wait. Some of them can't wait until tomorrow. And we are the only
We're
ones that we
extremely
know of
responsive.
that
we also
will work on. Will get it done.
we also utilize technology and stuff like a lot of companies our size don't. That gives us the ability to, I can tell you right now, I could get you a dumpster in an hour anywhere in our service area,
Yeah.
guaranteed. Because I know where the trucks are with the real-time dispatch or real-time GPS. I can see the cameras on the trucks. I can see the dispatch board on an 80-inch TV right next to me.
Yeah.
I know where we're at in the day. I know where the storage yards are. I know what dumpsters are in the storage yards based on the inventory
That's
count,
weird.
and I can guarantee I can get it. And
Well,
she knows she can do it.
Dispatch for 3 days from the trade show.
Yeah, we did it in
Wasn't
Vegas.
outside.
I was drinking a beer,
Well,
talking
we're
to people at the
here
trade show,
today, so-
clicking some buttons.
I was gonna say we're here today. Jake's not in the office, and everything's being handled. It's just Jake's dispatching. I'm assuming from home, maybe.
Well, I mean, it's fairly late in the day now.
okay,
but
well, no,
yeah.
but was. And I think that's one of those
We definitely,
over years with growth. You have to.
we embrace
util-
technology where other
Yes,
people didn't.
you
for
have
sure.
to take on some kind of expenses. You say, okay, yeah, wow, that's a lot of money, but it is going to help your business run smoother. So, like GPS, just for example, like tracking of the trucks.
We use it all
It
day,
saves
every day.
so much money because you can say this truck is. You have a customer calling in that's on, let's just say Lee Street in Atlanta. Sean can see that one of our drivers is right there, has that box on his back, and you can route it in it.
I'm so glad
Real
you're
time.
sharing this because we frequently remind our partners, like, whatever you're looking at in terms of your marketing spend, this is not the total amount that has to be spent because as soon as this growth happens, you've got
better
to
be willing-
reinvest.
well, that's-
and you've got
Yeah.
to pour money.
That's what
into
I've
it.
told-
Growing.
Because otherwise, you can't. No matter if
That's
you're marketing, if you're
that's
not good operations.
exactly what I've told people that have called me asking about you guys.
It can't
And,
stay stagnant.
you know, do they do what they say? Are we going to grow? And I've told every one of them, if you're not ready to spend some money on equipment, don't hire them because you're throwing your money away. You're
Yeah.
going, the phone's going to ring. You're going to need dumpsters. You're going to need trucks. You're going to need employees.
You have
If you
to be
don't
ready
want to do
to,
that, don't.
your spending is going to increase, but you should also see that the increase of revenue.
Yeah.
I mean,
You just made a really nice Freudian slip. You said if you're not ready to spend money on equipment. And I see services like ours and the services, the technology that you're investing in as just as important as the equipment.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Early on, that the new trucks made such a difference
Oh yeah,
in the business because you didn't have to work on the doggone trucks anymore.
yeah.
The same investment can be said about technology.
Yep.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
They weren't falling apart.
The other.
Partner of ours, or the software we use to manage everything day to day, is
That was a big
software called
job.
Curb Waste. And I still, if I'm talking to anybody about them, I use the example. It's been a couple years now, but we were in the process of interviewing. We were going to hire. We needed more office staff, and it was because of the software we use and the processes, whatever. So we went live with Curb Waste, and within like a week, Taylor was like, "We don't need to hire anybody." Like it just got streamlined so much. So make that investment in that
You know, and
technology.
that was kind of a.
upfront expense.
Yeah.
And you had to be
And,
ready
and,
to deal
and
with that
it
expense.
was, like I said earlier, with any kind of change, I feel like in business, everything seems like, ooh, that sounds like it's going to be a lot of work, or that seems like a scary jump to make. Wow, we're about to completely change our software. But we were working with, we had one software, but we were having to use all of
We used
these
five-
other things
five
to
five
make
softwares
it as
to
a
do-
whole work. Versus we're going to be spending more money, but this is pulled in and this is pulled in and this is pulled in and this is pulled in, and now you have much more free time. So instead of spending however much you would in an annual salary for replacing, adding one or two more office, you don't need to do that.
And we're not
So
against
you're kind
hiring,
of-
but if we
yeah,
don't
I mean,
need to,
if
then
we
we're
don't need to.
not.
And the girls now, I mean, we don't want everyone to feel over, you know. We want everybody to comfortably, and y'all see, we answer our phones. We don't miss anything. And they're still comfortable. Like, the system that we have now is,
It's streamlined their day big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we look at it the same way with Harbinger because there's a lot of partners that we've talked to that they have an SEO company they work with, and they have an internal person that handles the social, and
Yeah.
they have 3 or 4, 5, 6 different
Once
vendors.
you add things up,
Exactly.
and not to mention, just get that out of. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want.
There's more valuable
I can't.
things for you to do
I
with your
can't.
time.
If you pulled that in internally, because that was conversation early on too with Dad before talked about, well, why don't we just spend X amount and hire someone in? None of us know how to do it, so how do we know that that person is doing what they need to be doing?
Yeah.
How many people do you want to deal with during
Yeah,
the day?
exactly.
Yeah.
Why,
When you can
let's
deal with
not
Steven.
add more to our headache.
Because
Yeah.
any of our marketing directors
I want
not
it to be
being
outsourced if it can be. So, yeah.
Well, I have one more line of questioning. So that's on the wall behind us, live intentionally. Something I think our audience and a lot of our partners would value hearing from you guys is when you think about your entrepreneurial journey over the last however many years, the idea of live intentionally is this idea that we as humans have more that we're held accountable for than just our professional area of life. We're held accountable for our physical bodies, we're held accountable for our families, our health, like all areas of our life. Like it's a lot to balance, a lot to juggle. And I know that you've probably talked to other entrepreneurs that's always a struggle to you know how to balance it, how to do that well. So what advice would you give to business owners on how you've been able to live intentionally and take care of your family, et cetera?
I think if you would have documented, if I would have done like a vlog or whatever, the first 5-6 years I was probably terrible at it.
Yeah.
But that was just trying to do everything ourselves. And some of it was necessity. You couldn't afford to hire people.
It was the nature of it.
Yeah, it was the nature of it. We couldn't afford
It's hard
it.
to let go of.
It's hard to let go. And it's still, like, to this day, we are way past the point of me or my brother dispatching. We both still dispatch. I like it. I could hire somebody tomorrow to do it, but I like it. So, and then giving up everything along the way.
You have to learn to not once you
not
learn to
micromanage.
stop micromanaging.
If you hire the right people and you trust them.
trusting your process, trusting that the people you have in place are going to kind of help
But
make sure everything is smoothly. And I think outsourcing certain things, like you just cannot take everything
yeah,
in and think you can handle it all. You're going to drive yourself
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, you're going to not enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
and then also like
And when you don't enjoy what you're doing, your
and
family.
when you
it's
have
hard.
5 kids, you don't have much of an option.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Because you know who we are at work matters. It matters like the type of
and you go home and
personality
your I think your emotions, the way the day was, you obviously take that home naturally. I think most people can't just cut it off, and you want to go home in a good mood, not worn out.
Yeah, we just saw that infographic today in a meeting that David and I were in earlier. The boss yells at the man yells at the wife yells at the child. The child's now yelling at the cat, right? Because it just continues to roll downhill.
Yeah.
Do any of us really want to be that person? I don't think we do.
no,
But it sure can happen if we're not careful.
Yeah, it can.
no. But it's, I would say for us, it is these last few years. It has gotten really, really smooth and easy compared to those first several years.
And I think, well, I mean, that's a choice because oftentimes someone can just find something else to replace what it is that they've offloaded instead of taking that time and saying, you know what, now I get to spend time with my kids and my family.
No,
Well,
especially
100%,
Jake and Sean. Jake and Sean have. So it used to be they were both very like if Sean was there, I mean like physically at work. Sean was there, Jake was there, and they I think finally let go of the idea that we don't both have to be here at all times. Like we can. I'll take. You know, I got stuff I need to do around the house. Or like Sean went Christmas shopping with his wife yesterday while Jake kind of took on, I mean.
But also like it took a while to build. I feel like it's fairly self-sustaining and it's going to keep growing
But
regardless
it takes
of.
growth to get there.
Yeah, and it's gonna grow regardless
if we
of
look
if I'm
back
there or not.
years, me and Sean, we were talking about like we used to be open on Saturdays, and that's one of those things that like we felt like we had to be open on Saturdays, and we did not. That was not enjoyable. So we're not open on Saturdays anymore. Like
The revenue didn't drop at all.
Yeah,
Customers
we
just called Monday through
finally.
Friday.
I think it tiered back. It was every Saturday, and then we said, okay, let's do every other Saturday. It was almost like ripping that Band-Aid off. We think we have to have it, but we're proving to ourselves now that it wasn't necessary. Like we have someone answering the phones. She gets to do it from home, everyone is much happier, but we're not.
Nice head start on
We're not sitting up at. We don't have someone sitting at the shop, feeling like this is pointless. I could be doing a load of laundry,
And I don't have to change tires and do brake jobs.
Yeah, they don't feel like they have
7 a.m. on
and
Saturday morning, or 8
mentally,
o'clock
I think
Friday
as like a
night.
business owner, if business is operating, you're not fully shut off. So even though Sean and Jake were at home on Saturdays, if we were open and operating, they're still checked in. So I think it's just you learn to say, okay, we've got to shut things, we've got to cut things off and
And it's when,
differentiate at time.
And again, it's when you're able to grow and you've gone through the process of making those hires and delegating what you need to, that you can even choose to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're where we're at now. I mean, the growth is, that was, let's just say 5 years ago compared to now, and we're working one less day.
Yeah.
So operating one less day. Yeah.
And then, I mean, my wife could probably tell the story better. I mean, I don't know how many years we went with, there was no vacation.
Yeah.
There was none of that.
That's, and they take,
and so now I feel like I'm,
they could just take multiples.
can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But
Well, the seasons in life. Sometimes the business needs more allocation of your time, and hopefully,
it only
pays
took
off.
13 years to get
That's
here.
right, only 13 years.
Looking back, it was a blur, but
Yeah,
it was a blur.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all so much for
Thanks.
your time today.
Thanks
I
for
really
having us.
What a great time.
So grateful. Yeah,
Truly, what a great time.
It was good.
it's awesome.
Thanks for having us.
So what is
Absolutely.